Good morning. Hi, I'm Mr. Marcus Williams. I'm the assistant principal of Brockbridge Elementary School. I am a former graduate of an HBCU by the name of Morgan State University. It is in Baltimore, Maryland. But before that, I actually attended Clearview Regional High School. That's how I have come to know Miss Matozo. She has taught my brother, and we've had numerous conversations, throughout my tenure there at Clearview. If you can read my shirt, it actually says Black History in the Making. Um, and for me, this was a growth process when it comes to the message on my shirt. What do I mean by that? So I'm no stranger to the area I grew up in. My family was one of the first Black families to even move into the area. With that being said, there was a lot of preconceived notions about people of color within that community. So there, needless to say, in a high school setting, there was a lot of um, challenges that I had to deal with, not just academically, and what I wanted to learn about you know myself, but also socially. And after graduating Clearview, I had to, for myself, learn more about myself, and I decided to attend that HBCU that I just mentioned, which is Morgan State University, to learn more about myself and learn about um, people like me and what kind of impact that they actually had on American culture outside of the typical Rosa Parks stories and Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, things like that. So today I'm going to do a read aloud for you. Um, and the story is called Gary and the Great Inventors. I'm going to preface this by saying, as an educator, as a teacher, doing read alouds wasn't my strong suit, but just bear with me as I go through this. If I make mistakes, hey, we all make mistakes. But let's go ahead and get started with this story. It's called Gary and the Great Inventors by Akura Marshall, illustrated by Adriel Mecca. Gary and the Great Inventors. Hi, my name is Gary. That's my twin brother Isaac and our friends Tamara, Dante, and we go way back. We live in the great city of Washington, D.C., and there's lots of stuff to do here. We take pride in our city, and we always are looking for ways to make it better. Every Sunday, we take a trip to Mr. Baker's laundromat, and he's a jolly old man who always smiles and gives us lots of treats. Honey, we need to go soon if we want to make it on time. That's my mother. She's a brainiac, just like me. Okay, dear, I'm almost done. And that's my father. He's an engineer who's making all kinds of cool gadgets. Gary's father puts the clothes in the trunk, and his mother says, Boys, it's time to go. They hop in the car and wave goodbye to their friends. Gary points at the sign in the window and says, What is that organic dry cleaning? Mr. Baker smiles and says, All curious minds right this way. He signals for the boys to follow. As they walk into the dark room, Mr. Baker turns the light on. To Gary's surprise, he spots the biggest machine he has ever seen. Cool, says Mr. Gary. Mr. Baker smiles and says, This is a dry cleaning machine. It cleans delicate clothing that cannot go into a normal washer or dryer. While Gary and Isaac take out the machine, Mr. Baker pulls out an old wilted piece of paper and passes it to Gary. It reads, Thomas Jennings, a reputable business owner, is the first African American to receive a United States patent for his dry scouring method. This ruling generates controversy. Gary stops and asks, What is this dry scouring and why is it a controversy? Mr. Baker smiles and says, "Young man, all the answers are right before you. Keep reading." Gary smiles and reads on. At this time in America, the US Patent Act of 1793 states that any invention an enslaved person makes belongs to their owner. However, Mr. Jennings, born a free man in 1971, meets the requirements to attain a patent, thus becoming the first African American to receive full rights for his invention, dry scouring. This method revolutionizes the cleaning process of delicate garments. Wow. Mr. Jennings' story is amazing. I cannot believe his invention is so old that we still use it today, says Gary. Why, yes, of course, there have been many upgrades along the way. However, Mr. Jennings and his blueprint will forever go down in our story, says Mr. Baker. The boys rush back to help load the laundry in the car and say goodbye to Mr. Baker. On the way home, Gary stares out the window and whispers, "One day I'm going to be a great inventor, just like Mr. Jennings." The beginning of something great. So that's my story, but I'm going to leave you guys with this. Um, all it takes is for you guys to, see yourself in something that you've read, maybe a mentor, maybe a teacher, um, maybe even a family friend to, light that fire in you to move on and to do things that you want to do later in life. Like for example, for me, I know I've always wanted to be a teacher, right? Um, I've, since first grade, Miss Kizatap's class, Soul School, that's where I went. Um, but as I got older, um, I didn't see too many people that looked like me in the classroom as far as educators, counselors, even administrators. So my passion into, spending time with kids, hanging out, teaching them cool stuff grew into, well, maybe I can be that example for somebody else. Maybe I can inspire somebody to move on further and do great things. And growing into an administrator, I took that and what can I do to affect the entire community to grow more people than I did as a traditional teacher? And that all started with the history that I learned at Morgan State with, administrators like Miss Matozo, teachers like Miss Kizatap, things like that. And I challenge you guys to, lean on those people in your inner circle to help develop your your ideas and what you guys want to do later on in life. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be sitting in an old folks' home and looking at the TV and seeing some of you guys on TV doing great things. But I want you guys to continue to work, continue to grow, and try to explore. A lot of these, these African American history guys and women who have done so many great things outside of the typical um, run of the mill, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Well, and it's not to say that they're not great, but we hear the same stories over and over and over again, right? So I challenge you guys to, lean on that circle, lean into some of these inventors and people who have had an impact on American history, especially Black Americans who you might not necessarily have thought of before. And I appreciate you giving me this time, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And I hope you had fun with me. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.